Hello and welcome. In this video, we're going to write our first basic C++ program that's going to print text to the screen. Okay, we're here in Visual Studio and we're ready to create our first C++ program. So let's get started by going to File and selecting New File. Now we'll get our new file opened up here in the text editor, and right away we're going to want to save this by going to File and clicking on Save As. Now make sure you're in the correct folder where you want your project to be, and we're going to save this as hello.cpp. Now I bet you can guess what CPP stands for. No, it isn't chicken pot pie, although that does sound delicious. It stands for C++. We're creating our first source file. That's what fancy C++ programmers call their files in order to sound cool. So let's create this source file by clicking Save. And now all of a sudden, Visual Studio Code knows that we're programming in C++. See the nifty C++ icon next to our source file name? Also, look down at the bottom right, and you'll see the language right here. It says C++. Perfect. So we're ready to write our program. Now, as we saw in the previous video, our program needs a main function. That's going to be our entry point. So let's go ahead and create that here. We're going to type int main with parentheses. That's our function header. And now we need the function body. We'll do that on the next line. Now, type the opening curly brace and notice right off the bat that Visual Studio Code already provides us with the closing curly brace. That's because it can read our minds. No, actually, Visual Studio Code knows that we're typing C++ code, and every time we create an opening curly brace, VS Code knows that we're going to want to close that eventually, so it provides us the closing curly brace automatically. Now hit enter and you'll see the cursor indent a little bit, and that's because again VS Code knows that we want to indent inside the main function. Our statements will be indented for clarity. Now, we want to print some text to the screen, and thus far we don't know how. But luckily, we know that there are libraries built into the C++ language which contain functions. One of those libraries is called CSTDIO, or C Standard IO. This is a library that contains lots of different functions that regard input and output, I/O. Now, try to remember from the last video how we can include a library into our source file. Go ahead and give that a try now. So I'm going to delete that. Okay, so you might have guessed that we'd want to come up to the top line, hit enter to push this down, and right here on line 1, we're going to use the include directive, followed by the name of our library in angle brackets. The library we want is C Standard IO, CSTDIO, and we want to make sure not to forget the closing angle bracket. Now we've included C Standard IO and we have access to the functions inside of it. Now there's a very handy function in C Standard IO and it's called printf. I'm going to start typing printf, and before I finish, notice that VS Code pops up this window here. You see, it says, oh, I think I know what you're typing. Perhaps you want one of these functions. And of course, the top one is printf. That's the one I wanted. So I can click on that, and VS Code will type the rest of it for me. This is called autocomplete. This allows us to be lazy and do less work, which is great. Okay, so we're going to call printf. Now, try to remember what we need to do to signify that this is a function call. That's right, we're going to want parentheses. Now, I typed the first opening parentheses and VS Code gave me the closing of the parentheses. VS Code knows that we're always going to want to close any parentheses that we open. Okay, so this looks like a function call. Now, what are we missing with this statement? That's right, you guessed it, the semicolon. Now we're making a call to printf. Now hold on a minute. Printf is designed to print text to the screen, so it needs to know what text we'd like it to print. In other words, it requires input. So we're going to pass in input into the parentheses in the form of text. And our text has to be in double quotes. Now, I typed the opening double quotes and VS Code provided the closing double quotes for me. Are you starting to see a pattern here? Now, our message that we want printed to the screen goes inside the double quotes here. So go ahead and type, hello, my name is, and why don't you type your name? My name is Steven. So there we go. We have our first program. We're now ready to compile and run it. Now, what does that mean, compile, you may be wondering? Don't worry, we're going to discuss what compiling means in a future video. For now, just know that you have to compile your code in order for it to run. Now, in order to compile our code, go up to the top and select Terminal, Run Build Task. This is how we compile our code. Click that. And now down here at the bottom, we can drag this line up to see more text in the terminal here. And you'll see build finished successfully. This means we've just compiled our code. So now we want to run it. Click down here in the terminal and type a key on your keyboard to get our command prompt. We're going to type !/hello. That's the name of our source file we created. Go ahead and hit enter. And boom, there it is, our text we printed to the screen. Isn't that glorious? Congratulations! You've just created your first C++ program. You're now a C++ programmer, a member of the elite and better than ordinary human beings. Now here's a challenge for you. Functions, such as the main function, can contain multiple statements. So I challenge you to call printf multiple times. I want you to call it 2 more times, and for the second call to printf, I want you to print your hometown. And then I want you to call printf a 3rd time and print your favorite hobby. So go ahead and pause this video and give this challenge a try. Okay, we're back and ready for this challenge. I'm going to call printf 2 more times. I'll start with the next line just after our first call. I'm going to type printf, and in the parentheses, I'll put my double quotes, and in the double quotes, I'm going to say, I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And you probably have no idea where Albuquerque is unless you're Bugs Bunny. Now, I can't forget my semicolon. I wouldn't want my computer to blow up. Okay, now I'm going to make my 3rd call to printf. And in this one, I'm going to say, I enjoy long walks on the beach. Never mind that that beach might be virtual. And of course, I need to terminate the statement with my semicolon. Okay, so I've got my code, and I need to compile this again. Every time we change the code, we have to compile. So again, I'm going to compile by going up to the top and selecting Terminal, and then choosing Run Build Task. Now, dragging the line up so I can see text in the terminal, here I see build finished successfully. Great. Now I'm going to click in the terminal and hit any key to get the command prompt. Now, if I hit the up key on my keyboard, I'll get the same text that I typed last time. That's a little pro tip for you. Now, hitting enter, boom, there's my message. Now, you might be wondering why the text printed all to the same line until it reached the end here and then it started spilling over. And the reason is printf is not smart enough to know that you want to print each message on a different line. It's going to just keep putting text on the same line until it runs out of room, and then it'll go to the next one. But what if you want each message printed on its own line? Well, I'm going to give you a special gift. It's called the newline character. At the end of your first message, just inside the closing double quotes, type \n. This is the newline character. Now, I know what you're thinking. /n looks like 2 characters, but trust me, think of it as a single character. It's called newline. Newline is like magic. It says, as soon as you start printing text after me, make sure you do it on a new line. Go ahead and put a new line character at the end of each message, just inside the double quotes. Now we can compile this again. So go up to the top, choose Terminal, and run build task. Now that we've finished compiling, we're ready to run this. So click in the terminal, type any key to get the command prompt, and hit the up arrow so we get the same text we printed last time. Go ahead and hit enter. And voila! There is our text, and each message is printed on its own line. This is all thanks to that new line character that tells printf to print the next message on a new line. Bravo! Go ahead and pat yourself on the back because you have completed your first program, but I want you to get excited because this is only the beginning. Our next videos will be getting into some much more interesting function calls. I'll see you in the next video.